Armenian poets. Poetry is the heart and soul of most societies. The genius of all poets can be shared by rendering their works through pictures, video, music and subtitles. Because of our poets, creators and inventors, life is inspiring and more meaningful. Let us honor them, for they made a difference in our lives. They taught us to dream. HTTPS. Bedros is important historically because he is the first poet to write purely subjective poetry in the vernacular. Daniel Berujan, more than anyone else of their time, Siamanto and Berujan verbalized the hopes of the Armenians at the turn of the century, using legends, old epics, and pagan history as the springboard and allegory for their aspirations. They waited for deliverance from oppression and the rebirth in Armenian arts. Kerdor Beman was an Armenian poet, essayist, and translator. Beman, the son of a school teacher, was born in the town of Ash. Gurjan Mahari. In 1915, during the Armenian genocide, Gurjan's family emigrated to Russia. His first book, Titanic, was published in 1924. Hamosashian, April 14, 1914, Lore Village, Sinat, July 17, 1993, Yerevan, also Hmak Sahaki Grigoryan, was an Armenian poet and translator. Hodayanas, Shiraz. He was born Hodayanas, Thonik Karapetian, in the city of Alexandropol, then part of the Russian Empire, now Gyumri, Armenia. Hodayanas Dumanian. February 19, 1869, March 23, 1923, is considered to be one of the greatest Armenian poets and writers. Hodayan Shion was born in 1920 in the village of Shahad. Hodayan Shion is a lyrical poet. His first book of poems, The Song of My Life, was published in 1948. Maro Markarian was born in Shulaur, Georgia, now called Shomian. She graduated from the Philological Institute at Yerevan State University and did graduate work in Moscow. Misak Medzarens, 1885 to 1908. Misak Medzarens has been called the most lyrical, most musical poet to write in Armenian. Maciej Fishkin, born as Gentrigian 1913, Damascus, 1990 Beirut, was an Armenian diasporan poet and writer. Nadiri Zarian, real name, Hyastan Yefio Zarian, December 31, 1900, Karakanai village, near the Ottoman Empire, 1969, Yerevan, was a Soviet Armenian poet and writer, the chairman of Armenian SSR Committee for the Defense of Peace. Perir Orvali Gozarian, better known as Peru Fire, Sivek, January 26, 1924, June 17, 1971, was an Armenian poet. He is considered one of the greatest Armenian poets of the 20th century. Adam Yarjanian, better known by his pen name, Siamant, 1878-1915, was an influential Armenian writer, poet and national figure from the late 19th century and early 20th century. He was killed by the Turkish authorities during the Armenian genocide. Silvo Katalikyan was born in 1919 in Yerevan, capital of Soviet Armenia. Her father died before she was born. Volkan Davitian, born August 15, 1922, Therapkir, Turkey, died 1996, Yerevan, was an Armenian writer. Davitian was honored promoter of the culture 1970 and an editor. Vakandarian, 1885 to 1920. After his elementary schooling in Tiflis, Darian went to Moscow to the Armenian Byzantine College. His poetry teacher there was Dor Langen, a Dutch poet and the Dutch consul in Moscow, who introduced his students to the symbolist poets of the time. He continued his education at Moscow University and while there joined the Russian Social Democrats. The Tsarist police had him jailed for political activity. In 1906 his first book, Dreams at Dusk, made him an immediate celebrity. He was hailed by the dean of the Armenian poets, Ovadan Armenian, as the most original lyric poet of the decade. He later published Night Remembrance, The Golden Legend, The Return to Golden Lake in the Land of Natal Irene and The Cat's Paradise. Vakandarian, January 21, 1878, Constantinople, April 4, 1948 was an Armenian poet and public activist. Tekian has worked as a newspaper editor in Beirut and Cairo, a teacher, and a social worker. He is regarded in Armenian literary circles as the prince of Armenian poetry, as his poetry, especially his sonnets, are unparalleled in Armenian literature. March 13, 1897, Kars, Russian Armenia, Russian Empire, November 27, 1937, Yerevan, Soviet Union, was an Armenian poet, writer and public activist. Charent was one of the most outstanding poets of the 20th century, touching upon a multitude of topics that ranged from his experiences in the First World War, socialism, and, more prominently, on Armenia and Armenians. Early champion of communism, Charent joined the Bolshevik Party, but as the Stalinist era began in the 1930s, he gradually grew disillusioned with Stalinism and was executed during the 1930s purges. Sayatnova, born as Harutu Sayatian, on June 14, 1712, Tiflis, died September 22, 1795, Hakat, was an Armenian poet, musician and asher who had compositions in a number of languages. His adopted name Sayatnova meant king of songs in Persian. Sayatnova's mother, Sarah, was born in Tbilisi, and his father, Theraket, either in Aleppo or Adana. He himself was born in Tbilisi. Sayatnova was skilled in writing poetry, singing, and playing the common shape. He performed in the court of Heraclius II of Georgia, where he also worked as a diplomat and, apparently, helped forge an alliance between Georgia, Armenia and Serbia against the Persian Empire. He lost his position at the royal court when he fell in love with the king's daughter, and spent the rest of his life as an itinerant bard. In 1759, he was ordained a priest in the Armenian Apostolic Church. His wife Marmar died in 1768, leaving behind 4 children. He served in various locations including Tbilisi and the Hakat Monastery. In 1795 he was killed in the monastery by the army of Aga Mohammed Khan. He is buried at the Cathedral of St. George, Tbilisi. Sayatnova is considered by many to be the greatest asher, folk singer-songwriter that ever lived in the Caucasus.
Mazam